And if someone would hit record or transcription, as things are going these days with all these fancy tools, we can maybe begin our meeting for this evening, and thank you all for attending. I'm wearing my orange shirt a little early in time for National Day of Truth and Reconciliation, which I know is upcoming this weekend and a holiday on the Monday, and we will be able to all take time to reflect in our own way about the lands to which we live, work, and play. And in that vein, I would like to acknowledge and thank the Sanawis and Qualicum First Nations for their stewardship of these beautiful lands to which we all partake of every day in various and different ways. Our agenda this evening is circulated prior to the meeting. I have one item to add under business arising. We'll be bringing forth a motion from our in-camera meeting this afternoon. And so could I have a mover and a seconder, trustees, to thank you, Trustee Kellogg, seconded Trustee Kurland, to approve the agenda as presented with the addition of item 18, under item 18, new business. Approval of the consent agenda. Trustees, a mover and a seconder, please. Thank you, Trustee Young, Trustee Kellogg. All those in favor? Trustee Austin, thank you. Carried. Our delegation this evening is an annual event to which we all thoroughly enjoy, especially when they are giving good news. Our auditors, MPS, and they will present a very high-level outline of our financial audit, which we will further discuss later in our agenda. But Kelly Elson from MPS and Ms. Leanne, I can't see her because I can't see everybody. Leanne with us as well. And I'd like to ask either or of you to present the financial statements for 2022-23 of the school district, please.
Okay. Thanks, Steve. I'm here. You just can't see me.
Yeah, no, you're off screen. Sorry. Go for it. There you go.
Hi, everyone. My name is Leanne Sochak. Some of you know me because I see some familiar names in there. And I'm with the district's audit firm along with Kelly Olson, who you can maybe see on your screen as well. And we're with MPS Chartered Professional Accountants. So what we're here tonight to do is report on the audit that we've completed for the district's most recent fiscal year end, which was June 30th, 2023. As Eve mentioned, it's going to be a very high level review. I met with the trustees earlier today and we reviewed the results in more detail. So tonight is very much just a brief overview and letting you know that the information is in the agenda package should you wish to look at it in more detail. Section 161 of the School Act requires that the auditor examine the financial records, report to the board, and forward a copy of the report to the minister. So as part of our audit, we will be doing that. And this is the report to you as the public, letting you know what the results have been. In the agenda package, and I should know the page numbers, but I don't, is the financial statements and our audit report. But I will just briefly let you know what's in there. On the audit report is page 2 of the statements, and it stretches over onto page 3 as well. And it states that in our opinion, the financial statements present fairly in all material respects the financial position of the school district as at June 30th, 2023. And the results of its operations for the year then ended. So what that means is the financial statements that are being presented to you, we feel are being accurately represented, and there's no material errors in there that would impact your decisions if you were looking at them. In terms of an overview of the actual results for the year, the school district had an operating surplus of $260,000 for the year, which is great, and had an accumulated operating surplus at the end of the year of 1.6 million. So within the financial statements, there's a note that details how that 1.6 million has been restricted or appropriated for use going forward. Operating revenues for the year were 55.1 million and operating expenses were 54.8 million. And again, the details of that, I'm not going to go through it, but there's a schedule within the financial statements that gives you a breakdown of those numbers and what the various types of revenues and expenses are. During the year, the district spent 52.6 million on salaries and benefits and 11 million on services and supplies. There are various notes and schedules within these statements. They're actually quite lengthy, so I'm not sure that anyone's really interested in going through them in detail, but if you are, the information is in there. I'm happy to answer any questions that anyone may have, but I won't bore you with the details of going line by line through them. And I would just like to finish by acknowledging the full cooperation of the trustees and the district staff through our audit. They're fantastic. They make our job so much easier, and we appreciate all the help in getting through the audit. So that's all I have. That's my very short and sweet presentation for you, unless there's any questions.
Thanks, Leanne, very much. I think if folks were able to attend the Finance and Operations Committee meeting of the whole on September 18th, there's a very informative document contained in that called, in our acronym style, FSDA, otherwise known as the Financial Statement Discussion and Analysis, put together by our Secretary Treasurer, which is very informative and more of a storyboard, walk through, maybe not as many numbers that folks would find interesting. So if you Google or go back in the district website to the Fins and Ops agenda of last week, you will find the financial statement discussion and analysis, which I think complements the work that MPS has done on our behalf, and which is our statutory requirement to, of course, sign off, and then return to the ministry. Trustees, are there any questions? Seeing none, later in our agenda, we will be approving these audited financial statements as presented. And so I thank MPS for your wonderful support over the year. And I know thanks also you have given to us to share with our finance team, Assistant Secretary Treasurer Ryan Hung and his team, as being very forthcoming and up to date and things like that for your on-site audit work that occurs in the end of August. So we appreciate your kudos to them, because they strive to follow all of the little things that the ministry tells us we have to do, which, as you know, are many. So thank you very much, ladies, for joining us this evening, and we will sign off accordingly with the appropriate paperwork after the board motion is presented later in our agenda this evening. So thanks very much.
Thank you.
You can stay if you want. I know we offer that. We offer that to you every year. I know.
Thank you, Leanne. Thank you, Kelly. Thank you very much for your work that you do for the board.
Yes.
Thanks. Bye.
Thanks.
As I say, I can't see everybody's screen, but I do remember admitting president of the Mount Arrowsmith Teachers Association, Matt. Oh dear. Stuff happening all over the place. Matt Wood.
You just missed that beautiful statement I made. It was fantastic.
Well, so good you can repeat it.
Yeah, things only come out of my mouth once, I think. I just want to say good evening, everybody. And again, thank you for the acknowledgement of our Stenauis and Qualcomm nations that have been in this area for time immemorial. I just want to say that walk last night is one of the things I love about this area. It went from shorts weather to parka weather, all in about 45 minutes. And so, and that included a heavy downpour that we made it to the Wembley Mall shelter for like 5 minutes and then made our way home. So it's always exciting sometimes when you go for what you think will be a nice sunny walk. So good evening, everybody. I'd like to begin tonight by acknowledging the board's commitment to providing a safe and inclusive learning environment for all staff and students. I commend the board for sending out a statement of support to staff, parents, and caregivers in the light of protests that happened last week. The Mount Arrowsmith Teachers Association supports our members' ability to provide SOGI education and curriculum in our schools because we believe all students, staff, and families have the right to safe, inclusive schools. Safe and inclusive schools require freedom from discrimination and harassment based on sexual orientation, gender identity, and gender expression. We are committed to fight the disinformation and hate through teaching, learning, and speaking out when we see harm being done. I'd like to take note. There were many letters sent in support of what us as educators are doing in our educational system. Brian Leonard, the president of BC Principals and Vice Principals Association, stated, "Gender identity and expression are protected under the BC Human Rights Code, and we do not accept any form of discrimination in schools. We appreciate the work that they do to communicate with their school communities and to continually support a place of learning that is safe and respectful." The BC Confederation of Parent Advisory Councils noted that they remain steadfast in ensuring the principles of equity and inclusion are never compromised. Also, Premier David Eby, in a letter sent to the BCTF President Clint Johnston, exclaimed, "To every teacher and support staff, you are my heroes. Your dedication to your students is inspiring. Thank you for all you do for my children and all of the children in the province. To every student, we may not have met, I may not know your name, and I may not know your favorite music, but I want you to know this. I accept you for who you are in every way. My job as Premier is to ensure you all have a safe learning environment so you can pursue your dreams. To every parent and guardian, I know you love and support your children as I do mine. As parents and guardians, we are taking on the most important job we will ever have. I know we are united in ensuring that all of our kids have the opportunity to learn in a safe, welcoming environment. Finally, our education system and school resources are designed to ensure all students have the best opportunity to thrive, to learn, to grow in safety without the threat of intimidation or discrimination. Thank you for letting me make that statement. I'd like to second pivot to something that will be occurring, and I'm sure Dr. Jory will be discussing today, as the foundation skills assessment. So I would like to let the board know that the Mount Arrowsmith Teachers Association will be supporting the BCTF's position on FSAs, which include the FSA is not a reliable method of measuring an individual child's progress. FSA testing results get misused and misrepresented by the Fraser Institute and other corporate entities that can be harmful to school communities. Data collected is not protected, and there are better models of provincial assessment that ensure the ethical use of student data are available. As such, MATA, in agreement with the protocol set out by BCPC, will be sending information home to parents of children in grades 4 and 7, asking them to either send a letter to their MLA or both, or ask their child to be exempt from writing these month-long tests. As information will also be sent home from BCPC, the district via the district, MATA is requesting that school principals and vice principals will support the decision of parents on whether they will or will not choose to have their child write the FSAs, as we believe they are not part of the curriculum. Finally, I have been able to visit all the schools and see many of our members at their work sites. And despite the routine concerns that get raised each year, I would like to state here that generally teachers are really feeling supported and are really excited about this school year. And as such, MATA looks forward to the continued collaborative spirit between the board and other educational stakeholders, and also appreciates when collaborative solutions are developed. And I will end with a working environment that is good for teachers will also be a good learning environment for students. Thank you, Heichka.
Thank you, Mr. Wood. I believe our KIPP president, Ms. Brown, is in a already ongoing meeting, and she was not sure if she'd be able to make our meeting this evening. So there is no report from KIPP. District Parent Advisory Committee submitted a written report to Carrie and Jessica. And do either of you wish to speak to your report this evening?
Yep, I can read it. Hello, DPAC and PACs are excited to take the energy from last year and continue to empower and engage parents, guardians to stay connected and informed in their kids' education journey. DPACs will take guidance from the BC Confederation of Parent Advisory Councils, or BCC PAC, as they state in their constitution, promote, support, and advance meaningful parent participation throughout the public education system in order to advocate for the success of all students. For SD 69 DPAC, this means supporting our school PACs to let them know their only task isn't just hot lunches and fundraisers, but showing up for our families means encouraging our SD 69 community to read newsletters, visiting the Ministry of Education and Childcare website and reading the BC Curriculum website, signing up for parent-teacher conference nights, and attending PAC, public board meetings, and parent-guardian information sessions, such as topics on vaping and mental health. But of course, carnivals and donut days are super fun too, so maybe a few of those as well. PACs are looking forward to seeing how the Feeding Futures funds will positively impact their school community. PACs have heard great feedback from families returning to see shiny new painted curbs and bike racks and appreciate all the work the district did over the summer to ready our schools for September. DPAC appreciates the school district sending out an informative message outlining their dedication to human rights to create a safe, caring, and inclusive learning environment for all students. DPAC also echoes BCC PAC's statement that they unequivocally encourage a culture of acceptance, inclusion, and equality. BCC PAC, together with DPACs and PACs, will continue to work towards ensuring the children of this province are educated in an unbiased atmosphere, regardless of race, color, religion, politics, family status, gender, sexual orientation, sexual identity, or ability. SD 69 DPAC is looking forward to an action-packed, informative, and fun year ahead. Thank you.
Thanks, Carrie. An inspiring message as the new year begins. That's wonderful. Thank you very much. I think now we're sort of changing our format because of going on Zoom and things like that, but we have in our agenda a placeholder at this time called public questions and comments in written form. And so I'd like to call upon Ms. Wilson, who is in receipt of a public comment and question.
I apologize for being on my phone. I'm having some technical issues with my laptop, which I'm overcoming, I hope. So there is one submission, Madam Chair, and the submission reads, it's coming from Ray Warnick. If you cannot make a living wage being a school trustee, then who gets to be a trustee? Regardless of the terminology used to define how a trustee is compensated, trustees should have the protection, equality to compensation, and a living wage for their time. Otherwise, I feel it makes being a school trustee in SD 69 a privileged position available only to those who can financially afford it, not necessarily those to whom may be the best suited to serve our school district. Please consider adding school trustees to Board Policy 301 living wage.
Thanks, Ms. Wilson. So in response to Mr. Warnick, at this time, I can say that trustees are not employees of the district. We are members of a board elected and given powers of administration and procedural things set out in the School Act. The living wage is aspirational and is not a legislative or mandated position, although we have adopted and have a policy of that name. Board bylaw 2, though, does reflect and encompass the notion of trustee remuneration, which I think is at the core of this concern by Mr. Warnick. And this bylaw 2 it will be reviewed in 2025, 2026. It is within that bylaw where we have the requirement to, in our final year of our term, set the wage and compensation parameters for the following term, such that we aren't electing necessarily positions and financial remuneration to ourselves, and rather looking forward to who may come in our stead after the fact. So the best I can suggest at this point is that Board Bylaw 2 speaks to the concern, and when it's revisited in 2025, 2026 would be an opportunity to make your concerns known again. Action items, Mr. Amos, we have our 2022 2023. First item to consider is a schedule of internally restricted surpluses. If you could speak to, and can you point us to a page? I can't find the
Yes.
actual page.
Oh,
In
page,
fund-
where am I? Yeah, it's
'Cause it-
note 18.
Okay.
Sorry, note 13 in the financial statements. I'm just quickly looking it up myself here.
Okay.
So I can give you a page.
Yeah.
So note 13, which falls on page 37.
37. Okay. Thank you.
37, 38.
Okay.
Yeah,
Thank you.
and just background, obviously, with the transparency, the expectation is that the board sign off or motion, if you want, the acceptance of how the internally restricted funds are held for future uses. And so it's as indicated in the note 13 of the financial statements. It talks about capital maintenance, it talks about software, it talks about school budgets, and it talks about Indigenous education from past years, that sort of thing, as well as any funds held for future budget processes. And again, so this would be one of, could be up to 4 motions if you want, that the board would consider at this time with a financial statement. The second one that sometimes happens is the educational, Indigenous education targeted funding. This year, the Indigenous Education Department spent all their targeted funding, so we don't have a need for the board to acknowledge the carry forward
Carry
of those
over.
funds. And then obviously the third one being, sorry, a third one could be a possible local capital transfer. I've got nothing, I don't have one this year. And then the final one obviously would be the audited statements. So that makes up the possible 4 motions that can go before you. Tonight, there's only 2.
Okay, trustees, and taking these one at a time, and I'm trying to, we have reviewed this at Fins and Ops already as well, or at least it's come up to the table in commentary. Could I have a mover and seconder to our first motion, which is the schedule of internally restricted surplus? Moved by trustee Young, seconded by trustee Kellogg. Are there any questions, trustees? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you. And then, as an extension of our presentation from our auditors, a mover and a seconder, please, to the motion that we approve our audited financial statements as presented. So move trustee Kellogg, seconded trustee Kurland. Any further questions, trustees? Seeing none, all those in favor? Carried. Thank you very much, trustees. Next will be our item B of action item, change in public nomenclature to the Qualicum School District, and a recommendation in your package on page 64. Dr. Jory would like to speak to.
Thank you. Everybody's getting enjoying learning a new word and saying it nice and slowly. Nomenclature. Yes. And so this conversation has come out of our strategic planning process, which led to a conversation about branding. And of course, we've moved to a new logo, as you all know, and we're in the process of upgrading our presentation, whether it's our letterhead or how we organize our website, what our brochures look like, and so on. And it seems to be an opportunity for us to actually solidify our identity in the public forum. In recent provincial meetings, I'm aware that our own board has had conversations with other school districts about the colonial nature of numbers and that they don't speak to an identity that we can associate with. And we know that a number of school districts have already made this move. VSB, Abbey schools, West Vancouver schools that changed their name, don't use their number as a matter of course. Of course, we have an official corporate name. It is the Board of Education of School District number 69 brackets Qualicum. That should remain on our official documents, our banking statements, land titles, and such. But what I'm proposing here is that when we are working in the public forum, when we are describing ourselves, depicting ourselves, that we simplify and align to simply Qualicum School District. Is noticing here, I mentioned it briefly, and was in a meeting with our MATA partners the other day, and we had 3 different pieces of paper, and we had named ourselves differently in all 3. They had done the same thing actually, or some similar kind of issue, and so this would help us, I think, a great deal, not only in simplifying and aligning our branding and our public presence, but also making it very clear to everybody when we are communicating that this is how we are going to name ourselves. So without any further description, my recommendation is that the Board of Education of School District number 69 Qualicum, our corporate name, approve a change in public nomenclature to simply Qualicum School District.
A little funny feedback here, but
I'm going to mute.
I
somebody
think
there.
Sherry was just the last one in, so maybe she's got something open. Trustees could have a mover and a seconder, and then we can discuss. So moved by Trustee Kurland, seconded by Trustee Young. Is there any further comments? Trustee Young.
Yeah, just to elaborate a bit on what Dr. Jory said, a couple of us were at the BCSTA gathering in April, and we actually had a resolution come forward with a good rationale around eliminating numbers from school districts. Not unusual. I worked for the VSB for years, and it was always the VSB. But the rationale is around the numbering of children in residential schools and how horrific that was. So that's just a little bit more background. Thank you for bringing this forward.
Thank you, Trustee Young. Colonization has its residuals that need to be tidied up a bit here. Trustee Austin.
I was just going to mention that Powell River School District is officially well, they're going through the legal process, but they're going by the indigenous name of, and I apologize if I do not pronounce this properly, I'm not sure, but Quatek School District, and that's with a small q, and that means growing together, which I thought was interesting because it's very similar to what we came up with. So anyway, I just wanted to point that out, that Powell River is going through an official name change as well.
Thank you. Interesting. Everybody has their different vision of what they want to be called. I see no further hands. I'll call a question. All those in favor? And like remuneration, nomenclature is now our new word. Thank you very much. That's carried. Amended minor capital plan submissions 2023-24. As trustees know, we have seen this come up around on another front because of reappropriation of funds from roofing to different places. This is a little bit of a different one as well. And as you know, we need to approve it 3 readings, and our first reading must be approved unanimously. So I'll turn it over to Mr. Amos to bring further clarity, and his notes are on page 65 to 69 of your package.
Yep. And so, I'm just going to draw your attention to the terminology. So the bylaw number 2324 CPSD 69-0-03.
Yep.
Again, just recognizing that this is version 3 of the amended of the minor capital submission kind of thing. And so this now includes the FIP funding that we receive funding for, a total of 102,000 for 2 projects that was submitted by our Director of Operations in late June kind of thing. So yes, and so we've just received confirmation that we've got the funding, and so this is just final wrap up of the 23-24 minor capital submission.
Okay, trustees, our first motion is to approve all three readings this evening of the capital plan bylaw 2324 CBSD 69-03, version 3, at its regular board meeting of September 26th. Could I have a mover and a seconder, please? Thank you, trustee Kurland. Thank you, trustee Kellogg. All those in favor? Trustee Austin, thank you. All in favor and was unanimous to do three readings, so we'll proceed to reading number 1, first reading of the capital plan bylaw 2324 CPSD 69-03 this evening of September 26th. A mover and a seconder, please, trustees. Trustee Young and trustee Kurland. Questions, trustees? Seeing none, all those in favor? Carried. And second reading to adopt capital plan bylaw 2324 CPSD 69-03 at our meeting of September 26th. A mover and a seconder, please. So move trustee Young, seconded trustee Kellogg. Seeing no hands for questions, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Carried. And third and final reading to adopt the school district Qualicum capital project bylaw number 2023-24 CPSD 69-03 at its regular meeting of September 26th. A mover and a seconder, please. Trustee Kellogg, seconded trustee Young. All those in favor? Thank you. Carried. Superintendent's report. Dr. Jory.
Thank you very much, Chair Flynn. Greetings, everyone. Esquel. What a great startup. Stated in August, the operations department did a wonderful job getting the schools ready. The more aggressive workflow has paid off with a higher number of projects completed and yet another upgrade in presentation levels, especially with the grounds and entrances of the buildings being in prime shape. Our planning and learning sessions went very well in the summer. Staff were in early, getting ready to receive students. And again, there was a ton of energy and enthusiasm from staff and students alike. And I think we're going to have a really great year. A number of principals have reported back best startup ever. And while I know we do tend to have short memories about these types of things, it's always great to hear this kind of positivity. Enrollment seems to be up about 1% at this time, which counters the prediction from the spring of flat or even slightly down. Associate Superintendent Jill Wilson will give you a tour of where we are as we step towards count day this Friday. Our Feeding Futures planning is well underway, and all of our schools have been sharing their plans to spend this money and get food to students who need it. Some of this fund will be needed for additional staffing, and some will need to be spent on infrastructure like stoves and freezers and such. But the majority will be spent on groceries, which will be turned into nutritious snacks and meals. And as of today, we've been in touch with a not-for-profit vendor who will be able to deliver complete lunches at a very, very reasonable price to a number of students across the district. This week is Truth and Reconciliation Week in Canada, and our schools will be engaging in additional learning activities in recognition of this time and the important work that still needs to be done. I tend to be out in some schools later in the week to experience these activities myself, and I look forward to hearing more about what our schools are doing when we meet for Equity Scan on October 26th. Schools will be closed on Monday, of course, as Reconciliation Day is now a stat holiday in British Columbia. As you all know, our strategic plan rollout is underway. Our new brochure is on the website, along with my 12-minute video explanation of the plan and the process used to develop it. I was pleased to do a similar presentation live for non-enrolling teachers the other day. I think I'm better in person, frankly, but I do look forward to working sessions in the future where staff get a chance to dig in and consider ways to advance the 4 goal areas of learn, lift, give, and grow. Use of our new logo is slowly spreading across the district as well, as our rebranding process is underway. It's now appearing on district letterheads, websites, and other publications with just a few digital traces of the old logo clinging to life here and there. We look forward to updating our truck and door decals very shortly, along with our new public-facing identity, as that decision has now gone forward. Mr. Woods, In regard to the FSA, we will be starting this annual assessment process in just a few weeks. As you know, the district team strongly supports the FSA, and we will be using those results to gauge and to guide our practice across the district, especially since our district participation rate has now returned to over 90%. We believe we have done everything asked of us to answer local concerns, if not provincial ones as well. It is the curriculum, Mr. Woods. In fact, the assessments themselves are full of very good examples of the kinds of learning activities that we should be seeing in our classrooms every single day. Our principals did a great job last year organizing and often running the sessions, so we know it's not too hard for teachers. Sessions are encouraged to be fun and engaging and low stress for kids. We have taught teachers how to use the FSA results in their classroom, and we continue to support them with their learning. We have created a comprehensive assessment program across grades 3 to 9 or 12 if you include the provincial assessments to triangulate our information and balance the workload. We have provided a digital data repository for local and provincial assessments so teachers have instant access to every student's learning profile. And I haven't seen a report made by those people, please stop saying their name, in the media since I've been here in this district. So I'm sorry, that can't be it either. There was a comment about unsecured data. You're talking about us. Now, I'm not sure if I should be offended. We're not really interested in real estate websites. I think these arguments are ringing more and more hollow all the time. My preference, as always, is to lead a high-functioning organization that embraces all information available and engages in meaningful, authentic, and informed conversations about student learning. That is, after all, what is needed to improve student outcomes, and that is why we're all here. More about that when I share the FESA report later this meeting, although I guess that's not the ideal in my mind. Certainly is important, however. I will finish on a bit of a down note. And on these points, I absolutely do agree with Mr. Woods and Ms. Kazatsky. I need to share a few comments about the protest the other day. And I appreciate the comments that were shared already. Like the letter that we sent out to parents and caregivers, staff, was a formal message, a measured message. And I think what I'd like to do now is share something that's a little more, I think, personal. I think it's time to do that as well. As you all know, last Wednesday, 100 or more anti-SOGI protesters rallied at the school board office, with a smaller number of pro-SOGI counter-protesters also rallying. The anti-SOGI group, a few of whom were carrying signs saying pedophiles or groomers, directed at us in the board office, I presume, moved over to a cenotaph for speeches after time, which were clearly audible in our office through open windows. In our letter to parents and caregivers, showing our support for safe and welcoming schools, as mentioned, we referred to those speeches as disinformation with discriminatory undertones. I have, you should know, received a small number of emails arguing those points, and I'm in the process of responding to them, saying, nope, that's exactly what that was. It was solid nonsense from end to end. And if I were to distill all those comments down to one single theme, it would be this: the school system is making our kids gay, and they need to be stopped. Now, most of us in this meeting understand enough of the science of this to recognize that is impossible. You also know that it is neither our mandate, nor is it an area of focus. Actually, we hardly talk about gender issues at all. Even in a broader sense, sexual health is, if anything, probably underdone in BC schools. Teachers are focused on a long list of other things. However, creating a safe and welcoming environment for all students and for staff is a fundamental responsibility of the system. And we get that, and we do speak to that quite frequently. So where's the gap? Why is that argument not working for these people? I've been thinking about this quite deeply for some time and have arrived at this conclusion. When I looked out the window the other day, I saw people who the world has left behind. It looked to me like they can no longer make sense of things. Seems like they have lost control. Some of them, I feel, don't understand their kids, or given their apparent ages, their grandkids. They seem scared and they seemed angry. And the gender conversation, perhaps, I would assume, ticks them off. And now it has been conveniently and intentionally gift wrapped as the issue of the day, the cause of all the worries, and we, the school district or the school system, are being made the scapegoats. And it is a bit gross. Now, it is easy to criticize and it is easy to mock, especially when people are so convinced, and I mean convinced, that there are students who are being given cat boxes in schools here on Vancouver Island, I was told, because they identify as cats. Well, folks, that was a global internet prank, by the way, that somehow grew legs, pardon the pun. What I want to say is I don't think any of this is funny anymore, and I'm going to ask two things of all of us. First, we need to stop laughing and get serious. As a history buff, I have seen this play out before, and the comical can become dangerous very quickly. Second, this issue needs to be addressed from the middle. What we're hearing for the most part are the voices from the far edges, because the media tracks the two extremes. I think we all need to do a better job in sharing and bringing parents along. Share the curriculum, share the resources, share the books. Make sure everything is transparent and open. Let that daylight in. It's high time that the thousands of people who live and work and learn in the system and exist in the middle of this issue are able to share what they do and what they don't do in a typical day, month, year. What I see when I go into our schools is people doing their jobs, taking care of kids, and being respectful. And they have no idea what those protesters were going on about because they spend less than 0.1% actually talking about that issue. Kindness, safety, respect, yes, all the time, every day. But the kinds of stuff that was brought up in that protest, no. People need to understand that and they need to hear it. So I appreciate your help with that. Sepco, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Jory. Trustee Young.
I just want to give a personal thank you to, sorry, I get a little emotional about this stuff. To everyone tonight for their strong support of human rights and human dignity and safety in our schools. It affects me personally, and I think you've said it better than I could have, and I really appreciate what everybody has had to say. Thank you so much, and may our world be safe for all of us.
Thank you, Trustee Young. Thank you, Dr. Jory. Profound and very thoughtful comments that I think we stand with you. Enrollment update, Ms. Wilson.
Seems hard to follow that, talk about numbers. This is the time of year where it's really hard for me, but it is the way our ministry do our funding, and that is around counting numbers of children and counting programs they're in and looking at what kinds of designations and giving them a letter. It's the only time of year you'll hear me talk about children's names and a letter. It's hard to do because children are not letters. They are children who live with a variety of different complexities, and they have different needs for different things that they're living with. However, it is the way that we are funded at the moment. And so our system is working really hard on looking at the needs of kiddos, looking at the needs of students, and making sure that we've got them coded correctly in our system. Our 1701s is what we affectionately call it. A snapshot takes place on Friday, and you'll see on page 70 the overall head count of our students at elementary and secondary. We are a little bit down in the secondary based on the data that you see on your page. It's not current. We have students coming in and out, and they're still in and out as of today and tomorrow. Students are registering in our system, and we've got some students moving within the system, and we've had a couple of students that have left and gone to different programs because that suits their needs for different reasons. You'll see, even for an example, our PASS, our alternate program, we had projected 60 students when this snapshot or when this poll was done. We had 41. I know today we're sitting at 47, partly because students come in a little bit later and they're programmed and the courses are now in there. You'll see the elementary schools of note in our elementary program. You'll see a significant increase in Qualicum Beach Elementary School. We anticipated that. Part of it was our own planning in terms of the number of students that we approved for cross enrollment. They moved from the Corcan area predominantly, and some of it was around daycare and after school programs. I'll speak to that when I talk about our program, my updates. So it was planned. We put some extra staffing in there towards the end of June in anticipation of that increase that came up at Qualicum. The other area that we're really pleased about, and that was from work that the board did around some boundary changes between Springwood and Oceanside, and we wanted to build our English program at Oceanside Elementary School. We've been able to do that through moving our primary learning community there, as well as having additional classes in the English side of that particular school. And we added extra staffing to that at the beginning of September because we were able to meet the numbers that we were hoping to. Overall, our district's going to be up, and I don't want to give you a number. It says a number there, but I know that that's not accurate as we speak today. So wait till we see our snapshot on Friday. It is good news. The level of the good news is dependent on what the final count comes in when we do this snapshot, when we do the actual count on Friday. Of note would be the work that our Indigenous Education Department has been doing. We have more students that are self-identifying as Indigenous and choosing to take programs. So the work that our clerical have been doing, our Indigenous liaison and our principal of Indigenous education, we have 540 students that are identifying as Indigenous ancestries. And I know that there was some additional registrations that were coming to one of our schools and registering tomorrow, which will increase our numbers there too. So that's a good news story in terms of the work that we're doing there. That also provides extra funding for that particular program because our projected number was 518. So again, good news. Final count, and we'll do that and share that with you at the next board meeting.
Thank you, Ms. Wilson. Trustees, any questions regarding our not to final 1701 due the end of 4 o'clock on Friday? That's where the drawbridge comes up and then funding goes out. Seeing no further questions, thanks very much, Ms. Wilson. Now I'll turn over to yourself again and Director of Instruction, Mr. Terpstra, for the educational programs update.
Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Excellent. I now have my technology set properly in this new Teams environment. I'm happy about that. Just a few quick things this evening. One, learning grants. We've actually been getting emails from teachers this past week, and we're happy to announce through obviously through the budget procedures from last spring and approval by the board for learning grants and collaboration from our Indigenous Education Department. We have zero waste grants that we've had. We have physical literacy grants. We have French immersion grants. We're able to provide $100,000 worth of subsidy for learning grants this year. So that's going to be exciting. We also had a great Pro-D meeting this past week with the MATA Pro-D team, and we're looking forward to sharing. I know a highlight for the board is the sharing of the learning grants, and we're going to make it an even bigger event. So not only those who participated are going to be there, but it'll be an invitation to anyone who wants to join and hear the presentation, so we can share the learning this year. Second, I was actually in Bowser Elementary School today participating in the kindergarten snapshot. I got to do my hopping on one leg. I got to do some wall push-ups, and with our little kindergartners, I got to go do the counting station. And we also did writing our names and copying some symbols. So it is really neat that we're almost completed with a team from our learning team, student services, and really a variety of staff that come in to just run our students through some learning stations, but also give the kindergarten teachers a chance to observe their new learners and to stand back and watch them, and then also debrief with the team on what they've observed. So it's a really awesome process that we've renewed starting last year, and I look forward to hearing what the team learned from all our kindergartners this year. We're also adding, I just want to say we're, thanks to Sherry Brown, Leslie Rowan, and just feedback from people, our education website, which is now reference to our previous nomenclature, Qualcomm Learns. And we're going to open that up this week. And what our goal is that everybody can find what they're looking for in 2 or 3 clicks. So that's under the Qualcomm Learns tab. You're going to see a little bit of new names in there, but hopefully quicker access to information. And then lastly, I'd also like to say we have a partnership this year with Milner Gardens. 13 of our teachers have signed up for a 5-day session over the year, really bringing meaningful outdoor education to the classroom. So they're going to actually go to the Milner Gardens with the education teacher that works out of there, who's going to not only introduce them to outdoor education activities that they can then go to their schools and make more meaning about being outside in the environments surrounding our schools. And I'll turn the rest over to Ms. Wilson.
I do have to add one comment around the kindergarten snapshot. One of the things that we've done is brought in a TTOC to help the team so that the teachers can meet with the team and have that really rich conversation around the observations that they've done. And so the teacher teaching on call that we brought in is a relatively new teacher to our community who's an experienced ECE and kindergarten teacher from another district. So we thought this would be an ideal person to come in. So I ran into the team earlier this week, and she made a point of saying, I can't believe I have the privilege of being here doing this work for this 2-week period. My previous district didn't do anything like it. I keep sending notes and texts to my colleagues saying what an amazing thing it is that you're doing. She kept saying, I can't believe you're doing this. I can't believe you're doing this. What an opportunity for teachers. So someone new to our district coming in and being part of it and observing what the team has put together and doing, it was really affirming, and it was again a credit to the work that we're doing in our community. So I think, did you have a question, just a younger? Sorry, I didn't mean to.
Just some comments on what Rudy had to say, and I will say that, I think the work that we do with our kindy kids is just, it's so valuable, because in my experience, there are so many children that come in with really no background, and then we realize that they have some needs that we need to meet, and it's great to get that early. But just to kind of highlight the learning grant presentations, I'm really glad that we're expanding this year. That was just such a great opportunity for teachers who are passionate about their work, as most teachers are, to exchange some really good ideas with each other. So thank you for that. Thank you for the website work. I have always thought that it should be easier to access information, and I look forward to being able to do that more effectively. So thank you so much to everybody for all the work that they're doing, to Sherry, to Rudy, to Jillian, and to the rest of all the people who are sitting around here.
Thank you. A couple of other things I've mentioned. I can't echo enough what's already been stated in terms of how our schools feel. You always walk into a building and you get a sense of what's going on by the way it feels when you walk into the buildings, and all of the senior management team has had an opportunity to be out in schools quite a bit to the start of the year, and they all feel great. Trustees, please anticipate an invite to the activities that are going to be taking place on Friday in our schools. We've got assemblies, blanket ceremonies. Our Indigenous liaison staff are working hard with their school teams in recognition of Truth and Reconciliation. And so those activities are happening on Friday. And I do know the invite's in the mail. Might be on Teams, but I do know it's going to be in the mail. Please expect an invite to one of your schools. Couple of other things. Had a great meeting with our counseling staff this morning, and we've got 3 new counselors to our counseling community, which I was really worried to start with that we wouldn't be able to fill those positions, and we did with great people who are a great asset to the teams already. One of the things that we talked about this morning is around mental health and anxiety and attendance, and really supporting our children and students and families earlier in the game. We recognize that our community has still got wait lists for many of the services, and so our counselors are doing a lot of work. This board has been a board that supported counselors in our schools, and we continue to have a relatively high FTE ratio, which is really important. One of the things that we are working on with our social worker, which again is a relatively unique position to school districts, but it is our social worker, part of the school district, and does an amazing work. This is his 2nd year in, and he says, I've never been busier. And I think that's because people know what kind of skill set he can bring to the table and can support our schools. We're working on a parent night on October the 26th, and I'm announcing it now because parent feedback from the last one we ran in May or June, I can't remember the exact date, was give us lots of heads up so we can get the information out to parents. And that parent night was to be able to support information about what youth and children are doing in our community. And so we have Amy Faulkner, who's a forensic nurse, coming. We have Charmaine McMillan, who's a community nurse and runs a youth clinic. Tobacco BC, we're trying to get them back again to talk about vaping and understanding the educational components around that, knowing that our students are not just vaping. And again, I don't mean the word just in terms of that it is harmful, but nicotine, but other substances as well. The RCMP are going to be there to be able to share information about some of the trends that are happening in our community. One of the concerning facts that's come up around our youth right now is that through the community nursing and the youth clinics, the number of sexual transmitted infections is on the rise. We miss entity. We miss the educating new ideas towards youth, which was part of our sexual health curriculum that went into our schools. We know, and we had a conversation when we met with our local union around how do we support teachers with this particular curriculum, because we don't address it enough. We don't make sure that our kids are getting the information probably in the capacity as we do with literacy and numeracy, because it's an uncomfortable topic for some of our teachers, and we recognize that. So what POD do we need to do? What support do we need to make sure that we've got in place? So we had lots of conversation around that at our counselor session today around what counselors are doing to support teachers. Also, who do we need to bring into our system to be able to have that conversation so we can ensure that we're following the curriculum and we're supporting the sexual health conversations that need to take place. A note for me, when we came out of this session at the last parent meeting, when we listened to the people who actually work in our community with our youth and with our students, is Amy Faulkner, who is the forensic nurse. And she does work with youth whom find themselves in situations that don't finish up sometimes with a very healthy and positive outcome. And it's really interesting to listen. Sometimes I think we have our hand in the sand and we think we're a small community, and those things don't happen in small communities. They're just big city problems. And so education is the key here. We're also working with Island Health on looking at how we can support our youth in decision making around drugs and alcohol. We know, and you've heard Director Terpstra talk about the DARC in terms of the youth that are coming through there. It is on the increase again around the number of students that are self-medicating. And so what can we do as far as education and underneath that health and career education component to support our kiddos not making choices that are not healthy. And so we're applying for a grant through Island Health that is going to provide some opportunity to do some research around some programs that we can offer them. Our after-school programs, I mentioned it a little bit at the Education Committee. We were successful getting a license up at Bowser Elementary School, and so that program is up and running, and hopefully that will reduce the number of students that are looking at cross-enrolling to Qualicum because of daycare situations, and so that's helping one of our more rural community schools out there. We've expanded the program that we've got by supporting Arrington with 2 classrooms now. They have 2 areas for the after school program. Oceanside does have a wait list. I think that was mentioned at the Ed Committee. And so we're looking at licensing to see what would happen if how can we expand that program to meet the needs at Oceanside. It's not done yet, so please don't go out rushing saying we're opening another program out there. We're looking to see how we can expand that. And I know our Secretary Treasurer was on a call today to look at how we can reach out to the ministry and look at some of the new funding for new after school spaces. So that's a work in progress. The other area that is really fascinating is the dollars and the feeding futures. I want to give credit to all of our principals who've been working hard to look at how we provide support to families and making sure it's meaningful, nutritional, and we're spending the money on food for families and for children who need that. So as Superintendent Jory talked this afternoon, we had a great conversation with an organization whom I think can address some of our worries and how do we do this without having all of the infrastructure in place yet. That's not infrastructure, never going to be, but I know that Director Monroe has been working hard around applying for some capital dollars that comes with the Feeding Futures to be able to have our own facilities that we can do some that are more industrialized in terms of the cooking and the use of space in that. So more to come on what that looks like, but it is happening. Lots of conversation. I have a meeting with principals tomorrow to put some of the final touches on this is what we can do and this is where we can go, looking at how we put the staffing in place to do the work, but also recognizing how do we actually get that many lunches to little people and bigger people on a regular basis. And I think that's it for now.
Thanks, Ms. Wilson. Entity is I think the success of Entity was it was young people talking to young people. And I guess we need to revisit, rebuild, and bring it back. And it's in a new and different form. It probably wouldn't be the same, but yeah, it was, I think, a very powerful program that we offer.
It's not over. Sorry, it's not over. Given the requirement on nurses this last few years for obvious reasons, they've been struggling. We've been in conversations. They are as eager to get the program up and running again as we are. And so the conversations are happening this year with the hopes that we can have something, again, it might not be exactly the same, but in play next year.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I remember when I don't remember her name, nurse retired. She was awesome. She was awesome. Yes, and I look forward to the Feeding Futures ideas, and we have off the top what the not-for-profit agency is helping us with lunching or meals or.
Because this is a public meeting, can we just hold off on that for a second,
okay.
and then thank you.
Okay, good. Trustee Young.
Yeah, I attended a community meeting a while back around the toxic drug crisis here in Oceanside, and one of the things that was said at that meeting was very disturbing to me. Ever since I was a child in school, the top killers, if you will, for youth, people 15 to 25-ish, have been car accidents and suicide. Evidently now it's not car accidents and suicide anymore. It's overdoses. And I'm very concerned about the toxic drugs that are on the street right now and them getting into our schools. And I know there are things that we're doing, and I'm really glad that we're doing those things. But I guess I really worry about that that situation. So yeah, and aside from that, what you're talking about is all positive, and we have to keep positive in this world.
Any other questions of Ms. Wilson or Mr. Terpstra, trustees? Wow, that was action packed. That was good. Okay, on to our Finance and Operations Committee meeting of the whole. Your report is on page 71 and 72, but I'll turn it over to Trustee Young to expand and expound, and there's a recommendation for us.
I think the recommendation might be redundant at this point because we've already kind of passed the minor capital submission. So I would look to Mr.
Well-
Amos about whether I'm right on that. But yes, the meeting was good, and the information is in the package. Mr. Amos, do I need to move that forward? Yes, I do.
Yeah.
Okay. Then
Well,
I
It's
will.
it's a 24-25, whereas the previous
oh,
one
I'm
was
sorry,
an
I'm sorry.
amended third time
Got it.
amendment of 22-23. It's
I
okay.
don't. I'm not good with numbers, eh?
And it's a nice
Okay.
list.
Yeah. That the Board of Education of School District 69 Qualicum support the 2024-2025 minor capital plan submission as presented.
Trustees, you have that on page 77, I believe we're at now. Of your report, could I have a seconder, please? Seconded Trustee Kellogg. Any comments, questions? I don't see Barry at this moment, but he may be on another screen. I'll call a question. All those in favor? Okay, I'm going to say carried. Policy Committee of the Whole, Trustee Kellogg, you have 1, 2, 3, 4 policies to bring forward this evening. So over to you.
Right. Number 14, the information's on page 74 and 75. Board Policy 600, personnel. Recommendation that the Board of Education of School District 69 Qualicum approve first reading to adopt the revisions to the Board Policy 600 personnel at its regular board meeting of September 26, 2023.
And can I have a seconder, please, trustees? Seconded Trustee Young. Are there any comments? As you know, these items come 3 readings to the board, so attend your next policy committee meeting if you wish to make further comments or bring forward ideas. Call a question. All those in favor? Thank you. Carried. Board Bylaw 1, Board of Education.
Recommendation that the Board of Education of School District 69 Qualicum approve second reading to adopt the revision of Board Bylaw 1, Board of Education at its regular meeting of September 26, 2023.
Seconder, please, trustees. Seconder, Trustee Austin. Any questions? All those in favor? Carried. Board policy, 100 sustainable practices. Ms. Kellogg.
Recommendation that the Board of Education of School District 69 Qualicum approve third and final reading to adopt the revision to the Board Policy 100 Sustainable Practices and its attendant administrative procedure at its regular board meeting of September 26, 2023.
Moved by Trustee Kellogg, seconded, please, trustees, seconder. Thank you, Trustee Young. And seeing no hands raised, all those in favor? Carried. And Board Policy 301, Living Wage, Trustee Kellogg.
That the Board of Education of School District 69 approve third and final reading to adopt the revision to Board Policy 301, Living Wage, and its attendant administrative procedure at its regular board meeting of September 26, 2023.
Could I have a seconder, please, trustees? Second trustee Young. Seeing no questions raised, hands raised, anyone? All those in favor? This is third and final reading. All those in favor, thank you. Carried. Well done. We're marching along with our business of our trustee work. Education Committee of the Whole, Trustee Austin, and your report is in pages 91 and 92, and the Dr. Jory will assist with school code of conduct, but I'll let you kick off.
Okay, yes, we spoke of the school code of conduct at our last week's Education Committee of the Whole meeting. I'll put the motion on the table and then ask Peter if he has anything to add to it. So I recommend that the Board of Education of School District 69 Qualicum receive the school codes of conduct for the 2023-24 school year as previously presented.
And the seconder, please, trustees. Thank you, Trustee Kellogg. Dr. Jory.
Yeah, just a reminder to everybody who is on this call and maybe who was in the committee meeting or for the first time hearing it for people who were not in that committee meeting, that we did a significant work last year. We had a working group on this. We gathered examples. We had some deep conversations about codes of conduct. And came up with a template that we felt every school in the district could apply to their own context, using a matrix at the forefront for aspirational expectations in their environment, and then also making sure that the legislative pieces were also covered, perhaps not as prominently, but available as a reference point as per legislation. This was shared fairly late in the year with schools, and so schools that were able to move forward with the new template right away were invited to go ahead and do that and submit their codes of conduct using the new template, and schools that were not ready to jump to the new template right away and needed some more time to consult with their students and other stakeholders will be doing that this year with the expectation that they will be switching over to the new template in anticipation of the next time these comes forward. So I think that covers it.
Yeah, the review on the Code of Conduct Advisory over the year involved students, 2 wonderful students from each of our high schools, and they had incredible insight and perceptions on what codes of conduct can do and can be, and how thoughtful, or if you don't want to read them, don't read them. And so I think we came to a very good place to have flexibility for schools to express their community feel, and as well as to establish where we need to be with certain criteria, specifically the BC Human Rights Code and things like that. So I think saw some nice adjustments by some districts, and the flexibility for other schools in the district to proceed over the year to do the same. So there's the motion on the table. Sorry, I've lost track. Did we get a seconder to the motion from Trustee Austin? Sorry, thank you, Trustee Young. Is that? And can I have any comments? And seeing none, all those in favor? Carried. Under the Education Committee of the Whole report, and what we need to do this evening as well is the framework for enhancing student learning, which is page 93 in your package. And Dr. Jory, do you wish to add a brief presentation to the
I was noticing in Trustee Austin's notes that my previous presentation was robust, and I'm taking that as a hint to be just a little less robust this time around. I think the entire office is going to be quite pleased when we finally send this off to the ministry, because their superintendent's been frankly grumbling about it for the last 3 weeks, and it's not because I don't think it's important. I do, and I have championed the concept of it, at least for a long time, and we all know I like my data, The problem for me, of course, is the extent of it, and it forces you to do a lot of legwork and put together this enormous package, and actually take. I think it's kind of taken away from the purpose of it somewhat. That being said, here we are. We're just about there, and what I'm going to do, and you can see if you look at the briefing note, you see there's the legislation. You know, we mask our numbers. In our subsets that are 9 or fewer students, which means we don't share data on children in care or children on reserve. So I think we know that. This is the version I put in your folder a week ago. Wasn't quite ready yet. This one here is very, very close. I'm going to share it. Well, hang on a second. I should not. Hang on. Oh, I got there. Okay, let's try that again. Okay. If I pull that over, let's see. Oh, there we go. One page. I could see you, Eve. Can you see the FESL report? Thumbs
Yes.
up. Okay. All right. And thanks to Sherry for her great work and her patience with me as I continued to nitpick away until it started to look like what I wanted to look like. I was trying to do a slightly more professional version as per the branding conversation we had earlier. And of course, this is going to ministry folks. And so I wanted it to kind of look serious and professional. It's still fun though, and that's okay. We can have fun while we're talking about FESL. And so I'll just do a quick walk through the appearance of it. You know, there's a table of contents. Let's do it this way. Yeah, table of contents. We have grade 4 literacy. We move on to grade 7 literacy and on to grade 10 literacy, and then we do the whole thing over again with numeracy, and then we get into grade transition rates, the student learning survey, 5-year completion rate, and then post-secondary transitions. You can see there's a lot here. Some highlights for you, just to draw your attention to if you're curious. As I said in our as I said in our committee meeting, we do quite well with our literacy. This appears to be, if you look at the whole of it, a strength in our school district. We do have some of the same concerns that have emerged post-pandemic. Although in British Columbia, the results have held up a little bit better than they have in most other jurisdictions. And I would say in our school district, they have also held up. We tend to be at or slightly above literacy levels for the province. And that's an encouraging thing. And I because we are lower than average in our socioeconomic status, our household income, and there's a massive correlation between those two, that is a statement to say that we are doing quite well. The concerns that I would have after looking at this data very closely is when you get into our subgroups, when you look at students that are less privileged, when you look at students with learning disabilities, unique needs, when you look at students of Indigenous ancestry, what we see in the post-pandemic time is a drop-off in numbers that exceeds the drop-off in our regular groups. Many of our students in these other groups had done very well pre-pandemic, but I would say that the difference between the pre-pandemic numbers and the post-pandemic numbers are more significant for those groups. And I think that's a conversation that we probably should have as a school district with our educators, with our lead teachers, and see if we can get back in position and support our learners who need that extra support. The other concern I think that I noticed is in the area of grade 10 numeracy, especially, although I had similar concerns in our 4 and 7 numeracy, although not as profoundly. If you look at our results in numeracy, we could be doing a little bit better here. They're a little behind or below our literacy results, And I feel like if you can do it in literacy, you can do it in numeracy as well. The biggest issue here is in the grade 10 numeracy. We don't do as well in the grade 10 numeracy, the provincial grad assessment, that we do in our FSAs, which is interesting. If you take a cohort and you follow them, you know, from grade 4 to grade 7, often there's a little bit of a dip. And then for us, from grade 7 to grade 10, that dip that is fairly typical is greater for us, or appears to be greater for us. Now, this data is not the most current set. There is a set that comes after this. I'm told we did a little bit better, and that will give us a little bit more insight into the story. But it's a curiosity for me. And I think the conversation we need to have is our math instruction, is our numeracy instruction in our high schools keeping pace with the expectations of new curriculum, which is for us to cross over that bridge from process over to problem solving, something that is more creative, something that is more perhaps authentic and real world. And if we're unable to do that as effectively perhaps as we could, maybe there's more learning that we need to do in the system, you know, to strengthen that up. Some of the other pieces here are grade to grade transition rates. Kind of depends on the age, but at the secondary level, they seem to be higher than the provincial averages across the board. So that was encouraging. Our student learning surveys, kind of a mixed bag. I'm challenged by them as a data set though, and I'll give a little bit of an insight as to why. Comparatively speaking, we spend an awful lot of time administering the FSA properly, meaning they give you a big package of information. There's a process to follow. You know, the people who are running it, and typically it's the principals right now, there's a methodology to that kind of ensures a certain level of fidelity. Student learning survey doesn't typically meet that same standard. And so when the results come in, I often have historically and currently questioned them. However, they're not profoundly different than what we see for the rest of the province, and they don't raise any alarm bells. I would like for us to perhaps use this a little bit more effectively, but I think the route to that type of learning is not this survey itself, but more in the area of student focus groups or individual conversations, such as the ones we had 2 years ago with our Indigenous students. So more to follow on that front. 5-year completion rate is a strength for us. We've gone from being a little bit behind to a little bit ahead, and you know this is the new premier metric, I would say, for the province. For years and years, we were considered or we were examining 6-year grad rates across the province. That's what the ministry talked about. That's what the ministry cared about. And my what I'm guessing is that we're getting too good at that. It's into the 90s as a province, and so they've moved it back to 5 years and given us a more difficult target to reach. And so the numbers have adjusted down, and once again, I would say the work that we're doing to support our learners, to track and support our learners, to make sure that our learning environments are positive and welcoming and supportive, is doing what it's supposed to be doing, and we've turned something that has been a question mark into a strength. I like the 6-year grad rate better because I think the work that we've done shows more positively there, or more profoundly positively, as I mentioned in the anecdotal piece. But nonetheless, this is something that is encouraging, and we hope to see that trend, that positive trend, continue. Post-secondary transition, kind of an interesting thing. You know, what we're seeing is the impact of COVID here. We do tend to trail the province in all categories. Students in other school districts average a higher rate of transition into post-secondary than we do. Perhaps they're in urban environments for the most part, and that is a little bit more accessible, but it's certainly something for us to consider as a school district down the road, and that is the same for 1- and 3-year transition rates. Big interruption with COVID. You see a big dip there, which I think can be attributed to that time, but nonetheless, there it is. Back page. Once again, there's our branding. I click to a link to the ministerial order and the district strategic plan legislation. So questions, and what I'll do is I'll go back to full screen here, and I'll stop sharing. There we go, and bring it back to the room.
Thank you very much, Dr. Jory. I'll throw the motion on the floor first that the Board of Education School District 9 approve the framework for enhancing student learning report as presented. Also move. Could I have a seconder, please, trustees? Thank you, Trustee Kellogg. Questions, trustees? Trustee Young.
Yeah, I think the question of folks that are more vulnerable being impacted more by COVID probably has to do with the depth of resiliency and all of that stuff. So I think the resiliency theory stuff is, and we do this anyway, but I think it would be very useful to apply some of that to this data. The other thing that I really would like to spend, and you have said that we will spend time on it, but I'm kind of like, you know me, I'm always in a hurry for things, is the post-secondary piece. I think that the transition, that first adult transition that students make from high school to whatever happens afterwards is a very fragile transition in this society. And so I do want to spend some time on that. And finally, is this a document that has been shared on the Teams and I just have missed it, or is it coming soon?
I shared the previous version in the Teams. I let you know where it was, so you would have to go and find it. But if you go in there to the main timeline for trustees, it should be sitting right there at the bottom of the conversation, so you can peruse it in a little more depth. It is, I think, worth looking at, even though it is going to go off to the ministry very shortly. And if you notice something in the next day or two and want to ask about that or forward a suggestion for an update or something that maybe could be just a little more clear, you're certainly invited to do that.
Yeah, I think it was quite, as Trustee Austin said, a robust presentation at the Education Committee with finessing of some of the placement and layout and things like that by Sherry over the last week, with prodding and poking, I guess, by Dr. Jory to change it again.
She's looking forward to seeing the end of this, I think.
Yeah, I think so.
I'm actually going to give it the 3 R's. It's robust, relevant, and rich.
There you go. There's a new 3 R's. Okay, moved and seconded the framework for enhancing student learning report going forward. All those in favor, trustees? Thank you. Okay, over the page, trustee items. District external and internal committee representation is included in your package this evening. Pages 94 to 96. My screen keeps going down on all the other things. Basically, school trustees, that we felt we'd like to keep our school liaisons sites the same as last year, and committee representation to outside and external committees has stayed as much the same, with a little bit of a mix with OBLT. And then you'll also see a listing as well of trustees who will attend the DPAC meetings each month throughout the year, and coming to probably your school newsletters and things like that will be the announcement. And I believe it'll also go on the website as a full calendar listing of coffee with trustees that we start off on next week, October the 4th at Oceanside Elementary School, a cool Oceanside, and trustees will be coming to speak and talk and hear from parents and school communities as to anything that they would like to query us or question us or just see us. And it gives us an opportunity to be in their schools. So beyond that, I would, unless any trustees feel I missed anything on that, if we're okay, we'll go on to a report out by trustees Austin and Young on the webinar on decarbonization and the zero carbon step code.
Okay, well, I will keep it brief because I know I have a bit of a buzz on my microphone. But this is was put on by the Columbia Institute, which is an independent public policy think tank. They have a focus on fostering and supporting leadership for inclusive, equitable, and sustainable communities across Canada. They work quite a bit with elected people, and they put on a series of conferences, workshops, webinars. So yes, the last one was around the BC STEP code. The focus of this webinar seemed to be much more probably toward municipalities, because the BC STEP code has to do with carbon reduction, but it's basically geared toward new builds. So that doesn't have a lot of relevance for us right now, as we don't have any new builds. But there also was some talk around retrofits, heat pumps, things like that. But I am quite confident that Phil and our maintenance department and operations is well versed in a lot of the programs and opportunities that are out there. It did have speakers or people that came in, was like the District of Saanich, their sustainability planner, and they discussed things like the retrofits and decarbonizations and best practices. But yeah, most of it was really geared toward municipalities, but I still found it interesting because every time you can connect, network, get names, it can always be helpful. So that's it.
Trustee Young, any further comments?
Not really. I didn't attend the webinar, but I know that Parksville has been looking at step code 4 in their new builds, and I understand that's a fairly high level, but I don't exactly know exactly how high. They previously were looking at a step 3, so I don't know, Trustee Austin, if you can kind of very quickly kind of say, yeah, step 4 is good or not so good, but I'd sure like to know either privately or publicly.
Yeah, step 4 is considered a fairly, I'm going to use that word again, robust. You've set some, you know, at step 4, you've set some pretty high targets for yourself. That's what Saanich has done. They're being very vigorous in their approach to carbon reduction, and so they're aiming for the step 4, which I forget what the percentage is of the reduction. And I think that's what, you know, really most municipalities that should at least set as a goal is that highest step. So good for Parksville for at least setting that as a goal. Hopefully they achieve it, but if they don't, then at least they're trying.
And am I to think that this is an offshoot of all the work of years gone by on the building standards and things like that, which were LEED, bronze, silver, and gold? Is this a more update version or more, you know, modern version of those steps that were taken?
Yeah, well, I think, you know, some of it's more focused, I think, and much more focused on the carbon reduction. Okay. Whereas things like LEEDs and things, which was great, and they also looked at where you're getting your wood, you know, sustainable forestry practices and things like that. So this has a much more focused approach, the energy savings, the carbon reduction, whereas LEEDs sort of has a more whole overview.
Mm-hmm. Any questions of our trustees of it is always something we'll have to keep in our minds, and it's always a standing agenda item on the education committee as the climate piece. So I think if anything more comes forward, we can be on top of it. And I certainly know that Ops and Mr. Monroe have various strategies underway with looking at this aspect of our buildings. And yes, we don't have new builds, but let's see what we can do with what we have to be more efficient. Report out on the board retreat. Trustees gathered for 2 days on October 28th and 29th with our superintendent, Dr. Jory, to, have a more casual place to discuss various items. We were looking at teams, which we're all trying to take on board and learn to understand and remember to check into the link as much as anything to see what's happening. We spent time looking at the rollout of the strategic plan, operationally and future looks at the kind of things we can do in assessment. We also examined our own work in the way and means of a board evaluation. This is a system is a recommended place for boards, and I think we've landed on the place that we'll do a self-evaluation within 2 years of our term, and then a more, not to use that word again, but maybe robust, external 360 outside look to our work as well. And our first step to this will be a self-evaluation guided by a senior educator from our BC School Trustees Association, and it'll take place on November the 9th. So I look forward to that. This board has been very conscientious about that and has done this on a regular basis. It may not have been annually. Annually is kind of, the year goes around pretty quick. And so this is maybe more realistic. We had an opportunity to talk about our superintendent's expectations for the year and the evaluation and performance management criteria that Dr. Jory will be working on. His own personal research and his PhD consumed a lot of his time and expertise in past, but we did check-ins, and we will continue to do check-ins as your Board of Education does with the superintendent on a triennial basis at the very least. We looked at equity scan and the feeding futures. We looked at the Accessibility Act and the implications for our district. We looked at fins and ops and planning going ahead with our Director of Operations, Mr. Monroe. We talked about the electoral area F, OCP, and Trustee Austin was able to attend the most recent meeting on September 14th. So I think we'll hear more to come on that. And our meetings going forward, as we like to do with our town and our city, we've taken the opportunity to meet with those entities, but also we would like to meet with our MLAs. Mr. Adam Walker has had a turn of events in his role, but we also would like to meet with and exchange what's happening with the board with our MLA Josie Osborne, who tucks in a bit of the community up at the top and the right and over, and things like that. So we had a very long time together, although I think it was very fruitful in what we discussed. One outcome of where we held our meeting time was on recording of our board meetings, and we have been quite conscious about talking about this and keeping this at the fore. And we've come to the place tonight to bring out to the public two recommendations that are in the package this evening. One being that we would rescind the Board of Education motion 2308, that it hold its regular board meetings and its policy and finance and operations meetings of the whole virtually via Zoom/Teams, I would say, and that they are recorded and post with significant technology to mass students' identity when appropriate. We have another motion following that, trustees, but to entertain the second, we must, or we should at least rescind where we have been at this place at this time, because effectively, Committee of the Whole for Education was looking at a different set of parameters. So I would move that the first recommendation to rescind be carried out so we can entertain our second motion. Could I have a seconder, please? Thank you, Trustee Young. Are there any questions, trustees, about rescinding our previous motion? Trustee Austin.
Yeah, I'm not in favor of this motion at all. We haven't been doing it that long. I think in the interest of transparency and being able to access the information, we have the technology, and so let's use it. You know, we keep talking about transparency and keeping the public informed, and this is a piece of technology that does just that. I don't, and I think it's far too soon anyway to even be revisiting it and sort of saying, well, has it worked or has it not? It hasn't even been a year. So I would not vote for rescinding this at all. I think we should just keep it as it is, continue recording this regular board meeting, continue recording finance and policy, finance and ops and policy. And I'll speak to Ed Committee after this, I think, after the.
Well, we're not recording Ed Committee.
No, we're
so
not
it's-
recording Ed Committee. I was going to speak to that during the Ed Committee thing, the other thing, but anyway. So I would not be voting in favor of this motion at all.
Okay, Trustee Kellogg? Off mute. Off mute.
I just want to say that I don't really have a problem with the policy committee meeting being recorded, but I feel that it was a uniformed thing that we were going to do. It was going to be all the Cal committees, and I know that the viewership on the recordings that we have done has been very low. And so for that reason, I will vote for rescinding it.
Trustee Young.
I guess my reason for supporting this motion is that I think that it differentiates between committee of the whole meetings, which are not decision-making meetings, and meetings in public, which are decision-making meetings. I think that I think that there's been a bit of confusion on the part of some people that we make decisions at our committees of the whole, and we do not. We make recommendations, which then come to our only decision-making meetings, which are our meetings in public. So I will be supporting this.
Trustee Kurt or Trustee Austin again?
Thank you. Just to respond to what Elaine said, though that's very true that our committee meetings are not decision-making bodies and the regular board meeting is. The committee meetings is where the bulk of our information is coming. This is the bulk of where the public and people are getting their information. They don't get it at the regular board meeting, you know, because we've already done it at the committee. So I think it's really important that people have access to that information and the discussions that happen around that information. Thank you.
Any other speakers to the motions? This is a motion to rescind our motion 2308. It's been moved and seconded. I'll call the question. All those in favor of rescinding? Carried. Contrary? Thank you, Trustee Austin. So to move it forward, the Board of Education School District 69, well, I shouldn't be saying that, Qualicum, we'd like to proceed with holding regular public, special public, and committee of the whole via video conferencing with the only regular public board meeting and special public board meetings be recorded and made public. Now, the differentiation there is that the regular board meeting is where we are seated tonight. Special public meetings we discussed as being things like our budget meetings. The public budget meetings where we are looking at the future of the district and things like that being recorded and made public. So I move this motion. Could I have a seconder, please? Thank you, Trustee Kellogg. Questions? Further discussion? Trustees? Everybody has the essence of the motion in mind, so I'll call a question. All those in favor Carrie, thank you. Oh, did you want to speak first, Carol?
I did have a question, so
Yeah.
I'm not quite understanding the recommendation. That the Board of Education of School District 69 Qualicum hold its regular public, special public, and committee of a whole meetings via video conferencing.
Yeah, I
And-
think you're right, and the committee of the whole meeting should be struck. It should be just a regular public meeting, regular board meeting, and special public meetings.
If I
be
could
recorded.
interject.
Sorry.
So yes, if I can interject, yeah, it's you're. I guess it's not two motions, but two ideas. The first idea being you're going to be holding those 3 meetings via video conferencing. And then the second
Oh, I
idea
see.
being, right,
The
and the second
recorded.
idea being the recording portion, which is just recognizing that the public and the special public
Yeah.
meetings would be recorded and made public.
Okay, I get you. I think we were all sort of hooked on the recording piece of it. So, trustees, do you all understand the differentiation in the notion that it's all going to be via Zoom/Teams, but in the case of the regular board meeting and special public meetings, they would be recorded and made public.
Okay.
You good?
Yeah.
Okay, call the question. All those in favor? Thank you very much. Carried. Contrary? Thank you. Trustee Austin. New or unfinished business. Coming out of our in-camera meeting, the board, I would like to present the following motion for consideration and by the board. At the Board of Education of School District 69 Qualicum announced that at its September public board meeting that is considering the disposition of property located at 2350 Alberni Highway, Coombs, British Columbia, known as the former French Creek Elementary School. Specific details of the property, Lot A, District Lot 143, Nanus District Plan 15661, and that the Board of Education School District 69 Qualicum seek public feedback through a public notice to be placed in the local media. Could I have a seconder, please, trustees? Seconded, Trustee Kurland. Questions, trustees, discussion? Trustee Austin.
I will be voting against this motion. Not that I am against the intent of the motion. I understand the intent of the motion is to get this conversation out in public so that we can actually move things forward. However, what I am opposed to is the concept of the motion speaking that the board is considering the disposition of this property. And as far as I am concerned, I don't think the board has given that significant discussion and thought for the disposition of that property. So I would be fine if the motion said, you know, we want to talk about what's going to happen with this property, but I don't feel that the board actually, you know, is considering disposition, because I don't remember a lot of that conversation. I remember just a tiny little piece of that conversation. So I'm more opposed to the wording of this motion, not the end result or the intent.
Thank you, Trustee Austin. Any further comments, trustees? I think this project or this has been foreshadowed certainly for many, many years due to reconfiguration and other steps that the board has making over a number of years. And I think it's better to be upfront and pragmatic. I'll call a question, trustees. All those in favor? Carried. Opposition? Trustee Austin. That ends our formal agenda for this evening. I don't have full screen. If you would wish to ask a question, it is public question period time. Could you please raise your hand, and therefore through this technology, I can call upon you and allow you to ask your questions. Are there any other questions for this meeting this evening? Seeing none, then thank you all for joining us this evening. And I would just ask that as we move into the weekend of our National Day of Truth and Reconciliation, we all take our own personal time to reflect on what we are maybe doing in our own personal journey of learning and understanding the lands to which we live, work, and play, but also other aspects of where the Truth and Reconciliation story has presented to us and given us many questions and challenged us in our thinking. So thank you very much for joining everyone tonight. And Dr. Jory, one last remark before I ask for adjournment.
Well, Chair Flynn, I hit the wrong button.
Oh.
I meant to give you a thumbs up
You did?
and in
Okay.
agreement for your statement around how we spend our time this coming weekend. But so thank you for saying that.
Nice. Good. Thank you everyone for joining us. And next meeting is in a month.